are back with another episode of Quarantine Coaches. This time we got Coach Calvi down in South Alabama, the head coach. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Are you staying quarantined? You healthy?
I feel great. Aside from sitting by myself and weed whacking my lawn, I'm glad we could find the time to do this.
Well, at least your lawn's probably looking good, though, right?
Yeah, I did a radio interview the other day, and I said, it's the best my lawn's ever looked, man. I said I dread buying that weed whacker a couple months ago, though.
Yeah.
My wife has me on it.
What's on the project list? What's on the coronavirus honeydew list?
Well, I'm useless around the house, so it's not like I can build or fix anything. So, like I was hanging some pictures. I can paint. Manual labor I can do. Anything that requires creativity or skill, I'm in trouble. So, I still have to hire somebody for that.
Well, you got the talents and the skill for the baseball field. So let's talk about that. South Alabama is an excellent Division I program. I'm not sure that name, the USA name, is well known by kids all over the country, certainly here in the Southeast it is, but on a national scale, South Alabama, about and the culture you got there.
Well, South Alabama, in baseball circles, there was a time there in the mid 2000s where, into the late 2000s, or 2004, or I don't know, it kind of went away and hid. But prior to that, some big name big leaguers, I think 27 big leaguers. It really 1963 is when the program came around. So in baseball circles, South Alabama is very well known. As you reach outside this area, maybe not as well known. I know I was at FIU, and I had heard we joined the Sun Belt in 1999, and I hadn't really heard about University of South Alabama. Now, college baseball wasn't as publicized or well covered then as it is now. It was, man, you were, if you found a college baseball game on TV or Sunshine Network, I mean, that was thrilling, 15, 20 years ago. So, but South Alabama, we're in Mobile, Alabama, Division I, Sun Belt, outstanding conference. It's been an outstanding program. Like I said, it's produced, 27 big leaguers, guys like David Freese and Luis Gonzalez and Juan Pierre and John Lieber. And, and we've got some guys, in the last 5 or 6 years that have played with us that have broken in: Jordan Patterson, Ben Taylor, Locke St. John in the big leagues. So, it's been the 27 regionals, and I just never breaking through to a super regional, getting to a College World Series. Outside baseball circles and outside the regional area, it's hard to get South Alabama out there. In baseball circles, people know who we are. But to the layperson, you might not know, who South Alabama is or where they are.
Right. What's the biggest draw for young guys? Something that you would want young guys that have never heard of maybe South Alabama to know about South Alabama?
It's a blue collar program. I know that term gets thrown out there a lot. It's kind of like those buzzwords that a lot of people use, but it just is. It's a blue collar program. We play a great schedule. We're going to work extremely hard, and our guys get better. It's a baseball school. It's not. There's very few frills and gimmicks in this program. It's kind of strap it on and get better, and get a great education while you're doing it, both on and off the field.
I saw you guys got a brand new clubhouse that looked awesome. How'd the boys, I know they didn't get to use it very long this year, but how'd the boys enjoy that? And how do you think that maybe changes the program and the recruiting aspect of things going forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, they were, obviously they had a chance to watch it being built every single day. They started at the end of our season last year, and then
sorry to interrupt. Who's the visitor back there behind you?
Oh, that's Rosie.
Oh, hey, Rosie.
There she is. Yeah,
okay.
We've had her 8 weeks Sunday. She's our latest rescue, so she's now the third dog in the house. And yeah, we we found her 2 months ago. They were building a football field, and she came out of the woods and was starving. And I said, let's go. She hopped in. We brought her to the vet, and 2 months later, she's put on 8 pounds, and she's like an assassin with the other dogs at the house. So
as you can tell, I'm no professional who can actually stay on track with an interview, but I just love dogs.
Me neither.
So let's go back to the clubhouse. All right, how the boys love it, and how's it going to make a difference going forward?
Yeah, obviously they loved it. I mean, it's 8,300 square feet, and locker room, and huge locker room, and the weight room as part of the facility, which was great. We had a really nice weight room, but guys had to, after practice, get in the car and drive on over, and it was just so convenient having it there, and just we had a lounge for them and a game room, and all our offices are here, so the players absolutely loved it, and they could go work out and then go to the cages, and everything was right next to it. So it was just so convenient. And then, to all of a sudden just bam, okay, no one could even be around the facilities. There was no, it took them a while to get in there, and then no transition, and just, all right, you guys got to go. So that was tough. But we haven't had it tougher than everyone else. We're all in the same boat.
Right.
Go ahead. It's
Sorry.
hard to quantify, Josh, how the clubhouse will help. It really is. I can tell you this. I know it won't hurt. I think kids today, and the most important thing that we do is recruit. There's a lot of them, but the most important thing that we do is recruit. And so kids are interested in, not necessarily, yes, the stadium's great, and the surf, having a nice surface, and luxury suites and things of that nature. All that stuff is great. But I think what it comes down to, what they're really, really looking at, all things considered, if a program, one is even with the other and they're interested in both, I think they look at, okay, the weight room, locker room, batting cages, like where can they congregate? How nice is the locker room? Well, they're going to be in there a lot. Is there like an area to eat lunch or study, or things of that nature, and then the batting cages, like I said, and the weight room. So we have all that here, which we didn't in the past. We had a clubhouse, but it was a smaller. It was nice. It was great for what we had, and for the time when it was built 20 some odd years ago. But so I think it'll make a difference, because I know that's what kids are. Those are big factors. As well as I do. You talk to a lot of kids, and aside from coaches and opportunity to play, and again, like I said earlier, everything is even. If it comes down to those areas, the kid's probably picking the school that can satisfy those needs better than the other one.
You said that recruiting is the most important thing that you do. Why? Expand on that.
Well, you're only as good as what your players are, to be honest with you. You good player, good coach. You've heard that. And as competitive as Division I baseball is, and our schedule is, it's about the players. It really is. So that's the most important thing I do, is recruit and hire. Those are my two, and amongst other things. But I've got to have good people around me. I've got to hire good people, and then we've got to recruit the best players that we can possibly recruit, and then put them. Okay, whether we're the greatest coaches or not, it's irrelevant. If you don't have good players, you can be the greatest coach in the world. Yes, you're going to get a little more out of them, but maybe not as much. So you've got to have good players. It starts with the players first, and then it goes from there, in my opinion.
When you're out on the recruiting traveling coach program out there, what are some of the things you are looking for in pitchers and hitters?
Well, I'll let the pitching question first. Obviously, kids are throwing, in today's day and age, kids throw a lot harder than they used to. Like that's factual. There's more 90 mile. It used to be if a kid was throwing 88, 20 years ago, you'd like, let me see him. Where? You heard 88 to 90, let me see it. Now there's kids throwing 90 as rising 16-year-olds and rising sophomores in high school. And So there's not a shortage of velocity. What I think there's a shortage of is guys that can pitch, because everyone is so enamored with 90, 90, 90. 90 today, it's like 90's the new, I don't know, 87. It's no big deal. So I think all these guys and these academies and strength coaches and private coaches, there's such an influence on velocity, velocity, velocity. And I think that the art of pitching has been lost. Not on all kids, not on all, because there's some guys that throw really hard with a nasty breaking ball, and they haven't quite learned how to harness it. But there's some kids out there that don't quite have that great velocity, that are still trying for the velocity, and they haven't developed a changeup or a good breaking ball, or actually being able to move the ball around and pitch. So I see a lot of harder throwers now. And, a kid that can pitch still stands out like a sore thumb, because there's more throwers out there than pitchers. And I look for guys that can go out there and pitch. And now velocity with pitchability, that's the ideal situation. You're looking for a guy that can get a fastball by a hitter, but how well he sets it up. I look for guys that, the best pitchers I've had at FIU, at South Carolina, and even here at South Alabama, were not the guys throwing 94, 95. I had some good ones that did that, but it was the guys that could throw their breaking ball in any count, would pitch inside, knew how to use the count against the hitter, knew exactly who they were, and didn't shy away from that. Those were the best guys. So I look for those guys. Now, it's a little bit easier. It's harder and it's easier because the younger high school pitchers, they're enamored with the SEC. So you're on a rising sophomore and he's 86 to 88, and odds are, Auburn, Alabama, Mississippi State, and those guys work extremely hard. They're on some of those guys, and a lot of those kids have SEC dreams, like we said earlier. So, but some of the best guys we've had have been junior college pitchers that maybe were overlooked in high school, or for one reason or another, grades weren't good enough, etc. And I look for guys in junior college that can pitch, that can throw a changeup for a strike, throw a breaking ball for a strike, a low or strikeout to walk ratio, low walks. That's what I look for. So, and in terms of recruiting pitchers, it's kids that can pitch. We look for high school lefties that can run the ball, throw a good changeup, and because that's what helps you win at this level.
And what about the hitting side of things? What do you like to see out of a young hitter?
We've been fortunate enough. We've had some really good young hitters come through the program and develop. Starting with Jordan Patterson, and undrafted out of high school and went in the 4th round, and Swaggerty, undrafted out of high school, went in the 1st round. Hardy, same story, 10th, 11th round, and Donovan, same story, undrafted out of high school, and and then 7th round with the Cardinals, and may become a big leaguer. All those guys. Jared Barnes, undrafted, a catcher, and went in the 7th round. So. We look for guys that are multiple sport. The common thread with those guys is that they played multiple sports. 90% of them did football, basketball, baseball. They did other things. So we've been really fortunate, and we've gotten lucky. And some of those guys, they weren't out playing travel balls when they started at age 12 or 13 years old. They were 7-on-7, or they came out on the baseball field late because of basketball.
But is there a time for a guy, in your opinion, to give up that second sport in order to focus on one sport?
Not necessarily. I think it depends on the individual. I never heard back in the day. I'm not that old. I'm not that young. I'm 51 years old, and we had some good baseball players back then, and none of us ever stopped, baseball for football. Now, where there wasn't the money being handed out in the draft, and it wasn't as public. Everything's out there now. The NFL draft and the everything's been sensationalized. And yes, I get it. There's a lot of money going out there, but there's a lot of different voices too in baseball now out there. The advisors and scouts and the pundits, the so-called pundits. So I understand. Look, there's an inherent risk in everything we do. You know, the risk gets greater when you play football. I can see a potential, high school kid who's been told by scouts and advisors, and like he is a legit first round, second round, $2 to $5 million guy. I can see where there'd be concerns. I can see where, a kid, blows his knee out playing football or falls on it, dislocates his shoulder. He's a right-handed pitcher and he's a future first rounder. And I can totally understand the concerns with the money that's being thrown around out here. So I don't see many guys that are two-sport that quit going into their senior year. I have seen some, and it's for the right reasons. I think the right reasons I'm okay with, but just to, I don't know. I just love the multi-sport guys.
Yeah, enjoy your youth, as you were saying before.
Enjoy your youth. That's right.
So going back now to a different topic you discussed, you are in SEC country where you're at. On the recruiting, from a recruiting standpoint, you guys win, man. You have a great track record of winning. So how are you fighting that battle of trying to get guys over and being successful at that?
Well, I think you've got to have a certain guy. You got to have a niche. I think you look for certain kinds of players. You don't just go out there and wing it. Being in this area long enough, you get to see kids as they're coming up 9th, 10th grade, and you're like, okay, that's a guy I would be interested in. We've had our success, like we talked about earlier. We've had some success with multiple sport guys, guys that maybe weren't playing travel ball since they were 13 years old. Started like, hey, I need to be seen a little bit more. So as rising seniors or rising juniors, they get out there and hit the circuit. We've had great success with those kinds of guys. But I think it's, understanding who you are, what you're looking for, and what your program's about. Guys that fit into your program. I think because not every place is for everyone. I totally get that. It's up to me or my assistants to identify guys that we think are good enough, and then there's a process of elimination. You eliminate guys that this guy's good enough, but I don't think he'll be a good fit. So there's a lot of guys that do a great job out there recruiting, and it's really hard when you do it the right way, and that's by taking your time and understanding, number one, is this player good enough? And then number two, is this guy everything we need him to be from a human being standpoint? You can't always get it right, but the ones that really put more time into it, you tend to make less mistakes than others.
Makes sense. You see these kids develop for a longer period of time, and you have a better idea or know what you're getting. I guess that's what you didn't necessarily know. What would be one thing? Well, actually, we were talking about it before in pictures. I think we're going to see a better product this summer from pitchers than ever before because of no high school season.
I think you're going to have some kids coming off some rest. Let's face it, man, there's been an uprise in injuries, and the main reason is overuse, lack of preparation and overuse. No doubt about it. So I think there's some guys that probably got a much needed rest from this coronavirus. And then I think there's some guys that will hurt because they were multiple sport and they were just getting ready to hit their stride, on the mound or from a throwing standpoint in high school. So yes, from that standpoint, I think you'll see, you typically, if you're seeing arms over the summer, you better get in there within the first 4 weeks of them playing, because they're coming off high school ball. And it depends if they're a guy or not, how many innings they're throwing. So they start, you might be in there on a guy in, mid-June, and he's 88 to 91. And if you're waiting till mid-July or late July to see him, I've seen guys, that are 88 to 91 early, and they're 84, 86, and they peter out just because they're young and they get so burnt out. They've played so much in high school, and it's just this never-ending, wheel of playing baseball. So I do think you'll see some guys. I think you'll see some higher numbers. I don't think you'll see guys peter out, lose steam towards the end of the summer because they haven't played as much.
Well, hopefully we will be there. Before we go, just some random baseball questions. Who's your favorite player ever?
Man.
You can only pick one, Coach.
Wow. My favorite player ever. I love Thurman Munson. I mean, I was growing up being a catcher. He was in my era. You know, I loved him, and I was a Red Sox. I'm a Red Sox fan. So, but yeah, I love Thurman Munson.
Who's the pitcher that you would want on the hill in a must-win game at a pro level?
Wow. I guess you can say Greg Maddux or Pedro Martinez. I'm a Red Sox guy, so Pedro Martinez.
So Pedro Martinez came to the school I used to work at and talked to the baseball players there. And he said, let me show you why I'm good. His fingers were like, I mean, they were each like a foot.
He has that funky, doesn't he have that funky middle finger? His knuckle was as a kid, like throwing coconuts at his brother, and his finger was like crooked. And I mean, his hands look like enormous.
Yeah, he said, this is why I'm good. And he just showed him the hands. It was great. Hey, man, I appreciate you jumping on here so much today. And I'm excited to learn a little bit about South Alabama, too. It'll be a good thing. And I hope you guys and us all get back out on the field and see each other this summer.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for all the great work you're doing in college baseball and helping all these kids. And it's an honor being on here with you, Josh. I appreciate you having me.